Welcome to the Mother-Daughter-ish podcast. It's your mama's favorite podcast.
And the podcast your daughter always wanted.
This is Miss Dawn.
And Aungelique.
From the 713. Houston, y'all. Get connected and stay connected weekly as new shows debut on Sunday, Wednesday, and please check out our Saturday Out and About showcases.
Enjoy the show. Please subscribe, like, share, comment, and tell every woman on the planet that you know about our show.
Here's our show for today.
Everything's better. Mother and daughter, oh, they're the greatest duo. Mother and daughter, oh, they're the greatest duo.
Happy June the 1st. Almost summer. And I would like to chime in on the conversation of contracts and agreements. You know, if you've been listening to any bit of the blogging commentary or other podcasters or anything, everybody's kind of talking about what happened with Monique and D.L. Hugley. And I'm going to come from it from the angle of the business end of the business, which is something that I don't openly just talk about to everybody because everybody's not my client. Everybody's not in business with me. Everybody's not in agreement with what I do professionally as far as like we're not doing business together and earning money together. So I normally, keep this on the quiet. But I just really thought that it was really important to make people aware of the importance of contracts and agreements. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about where my knowledge comes from on contracts, agreements, and even MOUs. And it's very important in business. I mean, even when you meet someone and they say, hey, I have a school. Can you come in and mentor the young girls? The first thing you would want to do is to put an MOU together, which is a memorandum of understanding, so that you can kind of get a little bit of the scope of what it is that they're expecting from you, and then also let them know what you expect from them. And that basically my company XYZ is going to work with your school XYZ, and I'm going to offer XYZ from this time to this time, and then we both sign it. And then from there, we start to flesh out what the contract is going to look like, because the contract is going to be connected to the money. Now, I will tell you, back in the day, I think I watched 2 seasons of Atlanta Housewives. And I remember on one of those seasons, I think this was after I was already out, because I only watched 2. But on one of those seasons, Nene had a friend contract. And everybody thought that was so stupid. I ain't think it was stupid. Only because I think that contracts make people accountable. Contracts make people accountable. If you said you were going to do this, I said I was going to do that, but somebody has reneged on what they've said that they were going to do. So I don't think contracts at any level are stupid. I used to have my kids sign contracts when they were little, and I'll get into that in just a little bit. And you can confirm it with all 4 of them. Now, there are many, many types of different contracts, because I noticed also with Monique and D.L. Hugley, they went back and forth about, well, that was a deal agreement, and that was a this, and that was on Sydney's company paperwork. It doesn't matter. What matters is there are different types of contracts. There's fixed price contracts. There's cost reimbursement contracts. I've done all of these, by the way. There's cost plus contracts, time and materials contracts, unit price contracts, bilateral contracts, unilateral contracts, implied contracts. The word that's important is you want any kind of contract in place when there is money, programs, and services being exchanged. You understand? So anytime any of that is going to affect you either way financially, you want to have some kind of agreement in place and signed by the both of you. For example, when someone comes to me and they say they want me to do something for them, I'll say, okay, so tell me exactly what you need. I'll write that up. This is what it's going to cost. And then I literally send them over a 1-page contract that says, I'm going to do XYZ. This is what you're going to pay. In the end, this is what you'll receive. It's very simple. Now, some people are going to try to make this seem difficult because of the 2 parties that are involved. But really, if I had to judge, I would say everything lies on the promoter. If I was Monique and DL, I would literally come together some kind of way. At this point, I have to say some kind of way. And I would go see the promoter. And I would sit down face to face with the promoter and hash it out. And then I also, because I started this off with saying the business end of the business, I also would not have brought it to the public. The reason I wouldn't have brought it to the public is because of the backlash that both of them have received. I think Monique have received more. And she should have, because she brought it to the public. And we really didn't need to know the business end of the business. It's kind of like, you brought us all of this information, but you didn't say how much you got paid. So it's like, we really don't care. So if you had said, by the way, I'm the headliner and I got paid $7,500. Well, in DL's agreement, it said that he had to be the highest paid person on the thing. So what did he get, $7,550? So you didn't talk to us about money. You didn't let us know anything. So honestly, Monique, we really don't care, because it wasn't our business. It was the business end of the business that we didn't need to know about. Now, you could have came to us anonymously as far as like names and things. You could have told us what happened if you wanted to, but we didn't need to know the specifics of it until you talked to your road manager. So, that's just how I feel about it, because the business end of the business is really yours. One thing I have to say is 3 rules that you want to be sure of in contracts. You want to make sure you read them line by line. Now, I do something a little different. I have a iMac and a MacBook Pro, and it has a reader on it. So literally what I do is I get my pen and paper for my notes, and I'll sit there and I'll put the reader on and let it read each line by line on the contract while it's on the computer. And then anytime I hear something that's a discrepancy, or I want to change, or I want to increase or decrease or whatever, I take notes on the side. So then when I sit down and I write that email back to say I've read the contract thoroughly, it's been 24 hours, I've read the contract thoroughly. Here are the things that I would like to have a question about, or I would like to increase or decrease or change. And then it's a negotiation thing that goes back and forth. Number 2, all parties must sign the final agreement. I don't really care where you started at, because we all start at, it's kind of like when somebody goes to court and they say, I want $500 million. Well, by the time they go through all of the, information that they need to go through and depositions and all of that stuff, you might end up with 50,000. But good on you for starting at 500 million. That's just the way it works. I think with Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, I think his thing was for 50 million or so. Her thing was for 50. One of them was for 50 million, but what they ended up getting is she got 2 million and he got 15 million. So at some point, $13 million will have to be transferred over to Johnny Depp. Number 3, you want to make sure you follow what is agreed. If you want to do extra, that's up to you. But it should be an extra that you give without any kind of notice. It should be just done. Because if you give notice, then they're going to say, well, we could have threw that in anyway, and we could get you to do more for free, basically, because that's in addition to the price that you already gave us. So if you follow those 3 things, I think you will start to understand how important it is. You read it line by line, make sure all parties sign the final agreement and that you are in possession of the final agreement and that it matches all the things that you asked for changes. And then, follow what's in the agreement. Don't do less than what you agreed to do. Don't do worse than what you agreed to do. But if you decide to do more, that's just one of Napoleon Hill's, one of his principles is to go the extra mile. I taught a class on going the extra mile one time on a cruise ship, and it went off very well. And it gave people something to think about as speakers and as comedians and as leaders of messages. Now, earlier I was saying that when my kids were little, younger than teenagers, I would make them sign agreements with each other. And the reason I did that is because it kept me out of the mess. Like, I don't get in children's mess. The only time you're going to see me get in some mess is when it gets to, if they are trying to be violent or something like that, like another kid is hitting them or they're fighting each other or something like that, which kids do. But when they were little, I made them sign agreements. And here are some of the things that I made them sign agreements on. And you can ask either of them, they'll tell you. I made them sign agreements if they borrowed money from me or from each other. If you said you needed to borrow $10 and that you were going to pay it back on Friday, I needed you to put that in writing. Okay? And if you asked your brother for $5 and you told him you were going to get it back when you got your allowance, then you needed to give that money back. So I made them sign agreements, and they would bring a copy of it to me, and I would let them keep a copy because, you know, all of a sudden paperwork be coming up missing. I had a copy. The next thing is when to call me and when not to call me. I can remember when my oldest daughter, Angie, when she got her first car, and I helped her to get insurance and all of that stuff. And she had got an apartment and all that stuff. And I had her to sign an agreement basically saying, this is your car. You're responsible for this car. Sign here. If you go out and you do something stupid or you drunk driving, don't call me, call your daddy. Don't wake me up in the middle of the night to come, because I'm not coming down to the jailhouse. That's just point blank period. I mean, not for stupid stuff. I'm not coming to the jailhouse. So forget that. Call your daddy. If you are stranded or whatever, we have AAA, call them. You know, I had all of these things in an agreement so that she could understand that you grown now. You got your own place. You got your own car. Figure it out like we've all had to do. When it came to paying their bills and rental history, I never will sign for any kind of light bill, gas bill, water bill, phone bill, or apartment bill. I feel like when you have teenagers or you have young adults, they have to stand on their own. Nobody signed for nothing for me, and I'm not signing for nothing for nobody, because what people don't understand is that once your kids mess up your credit, they can't do anything about it. So now here you are cleaning up a mess, and I just wasn't going to do it. So I had them sign those type of agreements. I had them sign agreements when they say they was going to do something, when they said they were going to do what they said they were going to do. So if I said, okay, your curfew, you need to be in at 10 o'clock, and that you understand that there is no confusion. You can't say later, I forgot, I didn't know, I didn't look at the time. No. Your accountability in your mind tells you, your mom says you got to be home at 10, then you should be here at 9:50. Just to show me goodwill. See, that was one thing that I always did as a kid when my mom allowed me to date young, is that if she said be home at 10, I was there at 9:45. If she said, okay, you could go to one movie and come right back, I went to one movie, came right back. So, you know, I think that builds trust with people. And if you can't do that, then they don't want to deal with you. At least I don't want to deal with you. And then the last thing on my list, but not the last thing ever, but I never, I had them sign contracts saying, like, if they did something that I never wanted them to do again, that they would never do that again. So, for example, if they got in trouble at school, we never going to do that particular thing again. Now, they may do other stupid stuff, but they're not going to do that thing again. If, you know, they did something at home they weren't supposed to do, you need to sign something saying, you know, you're not going to do that again. If I allow you to go somewhere with friends, here's the list of things that you're not going to do. So I made them sign those kind of contracts. Let me tell you something. I still got copies of all of that stuff somewhere in a bin, somewhere in a storage. I hope they never make me pull it, because I will pull receipts. Now, as far as like Monique and DL, my opinion, again, like I said, is the final word should have been to the promoter, and not to us, not to the public. It should have been to the promoter, because the promoter is the one who put all that language in there to make them think that they were both the headliners. And my thing is, I would have been befriended DL if me, the woman. I would have befriended DL. And I would say, brother, because you know how Monique talk, brother, I just want to talk to you, sweet baby. And I just want to ask you, we got to come together, my brother. You know how Monique talk. I can't stand it. I just want to talk to you. And what did you get paid for the show? Now, if DL say I got $10,500 and Monique got $7,000, we need to go to the promoter. But at that point, DL would have pulled out his paper and said, but my agreement, anytime I step on the stage, I have to be the highest paid. Then if I was Monique, I would have said, okay, cool. They gave me a price. I accepted it. I didn't put my gauntlet down. Now I know how to put the gauntlet down the next time and say, I want $10,000 like DL got. So at that point, I would have said, put the kibosh on the money. And I would have said, you know what, brother? Let's go back to that city and let's get a meeting with that promoter. Me, you, and Daddy. course, daddy. Brother and daddy, let's go back to the promoter. And then I would have went to the promoter, and then that's when we would have hashed out, which the grievance is the headliner. We would have hashed out the headliner part, because it was told that on some of the tickets it said that DL was the headliner, but then in the contract it said that Monique was the headliner. Now I can understand Monique not looking at the tickets, because who looks at the tickets? You trying to get your set together, you trying to be there on time, you trying to wow this crowd. You ain't looking at, well, who owned the tickets. Now I would have requested a copy of the tickets before the show anyway. See, like, this is the kind of stuff you put in your contract. You put what's going to make you comfortable. You put in what your fee is going to be. You put in if there's any perks that you need. You put in if there's a certain kind of dressing room you need. You put in how much money you're going to do for X amount of time or X amount of whatever service you're going to provide. And then you put in anything else that's going to make you comfortable. So if having a copy of the tickets, see, it stops these promoters from the shenanigans. See, if she would have said, I would like also a copy of each ticket, the final ticket that's going to be sold before the show, 3 weeks, 2 weeks before the show, whatever, a week before the show, she would have saw that, and then she could have decided, forget this. But see, that wasn't in the contract, so the promoter didn't have to do it because nobody held him to that. But I would go back to the promoter, and Monique threw out DL's name. DL threw out the contract, his deal agreement or whatever, but nobody has thrown out the promoter's name. I would like for them to throw the promoter under the bus, because the general public has already done it. Because we can see through the business part of the business, and it wasn't DL's fault, and it wasn't Monique's fault. It was the promoter's fault, because he pulled the wool over both of their eyes. DL got the money, but Monique didn't get the prestige that she wanted. But then also she didn't see the ticket. So I think that in her contract, she could have also, Daddy could have put in the contract, just to be clear, Monique is the headliner, and had him to sign next to that. Then her case would even be better. And then I probably would even take the promoter to court. I don't know, mental anguish, whatever. But, here's what can happen if you don't sign final contracts and get agreements and see the final copy of how everything is going to be laid out. It's easy for the other party to renege and lie and pull the wool over your eyes and make you both think that you're at the both level and pay one person more than the other person. It's easy for that to happen. It's easy for the other party to just decide that they're going to do their own thing their own way instead of the way the contract is lined up for it to be. It's easy for them to just willy-nilly is what I call it. Also, it's an easy way for you to get stuck and confused. Nobody wants to be stuck, and nobody wants to be confused. And finally, I'll share a last story with you. Several years ago, I was under a contract that was very lucrative. Many years ago. Very, very lucrative. And when I say lucrative, I'm talking well over $100,000. Well over. And I was doing this contract with somebody for quite a while. And the person had developed their own company name, and they decided, well, I can make all of this money myself instead of splitting it with somebody else. And so back then it was basically about $1,200 that was being split. And we knew that we had to put the first year of proof in so that we could go to $45,000 to $5,000 and split that. Well, when it got about a month before it's time for us to renew the contract, I didn't hear anything from the person. And we talking every day now about business, but I didn't hear anything from the person about renewing the contract. Now, these contracts are not easy. These are big contracts. They are not easy. They take time. They take, if you've done it before, you kind of got a guideline, but they're not easy. And 2 weeks came before, and I thought, if we don't do it now, it's not going to happen. And if we don't renew, then this part of income I'll lose. And so I called the person on the phone and I said, hey, are we going to get together and get the contract done? Because we've never waited, 2 weeks before. We try to do stuff a month ahead. And she said, well, I decided that I want to put this under my own company and make the money myself. These were the words that the person said. I already kind of had figured it out. before I called, but I wanted to hear them say that. Well, here's the deal. Me and her didn't have a contract together. We had a contract with the other entity. It was implied, which is a worse mistake. It was implied that we would move forward because we both wanted to earn that income. Well, that's fine. I said, okay. So I quickly, within 24 hours, figured out, okay, I can get this other person to, work on this contract with me. They don't have an income coming in. They'll be happy to do it. And I just need them to do invoices. I'll do all the speaking. I'll do all the, getting the companies to allow me in the door. That was a no-brainer. It was nothing. I had a whole binder of thousands of people that was on the waiting list, that I could go to. I never had to go to the same one over and over if I didn't want to. And so that taught me a lesson, though, that I'll never work with anyone without something signed and in place. Even with my own kids, if we do something together, they're going to sign something. To me, it's just an accountability piece. Now, here's what could have happened. I could have called that person. They could have told me, no, I'm just going to do it under my own company. And I could have just said, dang it, I ain't going to do it. I would have lost so much money over the next 5 to 7 years that I can't even tell you how that would have just been ridiculous. Funny thing is, this person started doing the contract under her own name, her own company name, and she was still only doing that $1,250. But she got to keep it all herself. But at that point, I was doing $5,000. And she called me one day and said, how are you doing $5,000 on a 45-minute seminar? And I said, it's what I got agreed to in my contract. It's what I negotiated. She said, do you think you want to do it again? No, I'm good. I was like, no, I'm good. So, you learn different things in business. And as a business development consultant, I've learned from so many people, who to work with and who not to work with and what types of people to work with. All in all, what I'm saying is, if something is important to you, it's monetarily, financially fitting for you, it's something that you love, and you want to continue with it and make a life out of it, and it's going to benefit you and your family, get an agreement. I mean, look at it. Even when you get a light bill, they make you sign an agreement. When you get a cell phone, they make you sign an agreement. When you open up your new Apple phone and set it up, they make you click and sign agreements. When you call Apple support and you ask for support, they make you sign an agreement that they can phone share with you. When you do anything, when you make a hair appointment nowadays, they make you put a deposit down agreeing that you're going to show up for the appointment. So again, Monique and DL need to take this up with the promoter. Those of you that are listening to me right now, anything you do, you need a contract. If you got a co-host on one of your shows, you need a contract. If you got a business partner you do speaking engagements with, you need a contract. Anything that you're doing that is important to you, that is also financially supporting you, you need a contract. And that's really all I have to say about contracts, contract agreements, and MOUs. Start with an MOU that just says, hey, we got this idea of what we want to do. Then flesh it out to a contract. Then to a final agreement contract where you both and all parties can sign. Start there. Start there with the MOU and then move over to the contract. If there's no money involved and everybody wants a scapegoat out and everybody wants to be able to, move on, don't worry about it. But if it's something that you're looking at for long term, think about it. That's my show for today. And thank you for listening. If you'd like to support the show, make sure you go right over to Instagram. Find us at mother-daughter-ish_. If you'd like to financially support the podcast, it's $MDI podcast. And make sure on the YouTube channel that you hit the subscribe and the notification so you know that when we put a new show up. And thank you for listening. Bye for now.